Canadians might be happy to learn that the Bay's iconic stripes are not disappearing. Canadian Tire announcing it will buy the Hudson's Bay intellectual property for $30 million. That includes the Bay's brands, logos, coat of arms, and those iconic stripes. And while the sale needs court approval still, it is expected to close this summer. So joining us this morning with what's next is retail expert Doug Stevens. Doug, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
So these are two stores that have Canadian affiliations, even if not full ownership. They're coming together. While they don't sell a lot of the same things, I can see where the stripes would fit into Canadian Tire's overall sell plan. What do you think this is going to look like?
Yeah, so first of all, let me just say, and I don't say this very often, I think this is a 10x opportunity that Canadian Tire.
What does that mean?
I think the potential here, I was shocked. Frankly, I wasn't shocked that Canadian Tire made the bid, and I wasn't entirely shocked that the bid was successful, but $30 million for an iconic brand like Hudson's Bay.
That's a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think that there's been so much reinvigoration of this brand just over the last year. What an opportune time to invest in an iconic Canadian brand that really gives Canadian Tire a massive amount of runway now into other categories, into homeware, into apparel. And I mean, in terms of the sports crossover, let's not forget that Hudson's Bay, as late as 2016, was still sponsoring Olympic teams for Canada. So this is a massive opportunity and I think a really smart acquisition. And if anything, kind of a nice allegory for Canadian brands coming together and taking back control of Canadian assets in the environment we find ourselves in today.
I know, just gauging response from online, I think people kind of breathe sort of this sigh of relief that the stripes aren't disappearing. We're still going to see it in some way. But as a retail expert, tell me, how does something so iconically associated with the Bay transfer to Canadian Tire? Like, people think of them as the Hudson's Bay stripes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty of this is that you have two Canadian brands coming together, one that's 350 years old and another that's over 100 years old. And so they share that sense of Canadiana, for one thing. And I do think that there are opportunities for crossover. We also know, Anne-Marie, that there is still outstanding bids on the part of Canadian Tire for some of the store leases. We don't know for sure what the intent is behind those leases. I suspect that we're not going to see a resurrection of the Hudson's Bay store as we knew it, but there's nothing to say that there couldn't be smaller format Hudson's Bay stores as well. So I think it gives them the opportunity for new store formats. It certainly gives them the opportunity to bring new categories of goods with credibility to consumers. And I think it really gives them an opportunity to penetrate further into apparel, whether that's through Marks or Sport Check, leveraging some of these brands.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point that it's not just the Canadian Tire stores that sell, your cleaning supplies and your automotive supplies, but they do have Sport Check. They do have Marks as well. So there are those avenues and outlets. Canadian Tire's president and CEO Greg Hicks said that this acquisition felt strategic and patriotic. What do you think of that statement?
Yeah, I certainly agree with the sentiment around patriotism. And as I said, I think the odd thing about Hudson's Bay was that I don't think even as Canadians we fully appreciated Hudson's Bay until they said it's over, and I think we all sort of stood up and paid attention at that point. And I think that really breathed a lot of equity into the brand. But I think strategically, on the strategic side, what we also have to appreciate is that Canadian Tire has built a lot of its business on the back of auto parts. And a lot of that was sort of the do-it-yourselfer market, people working on their own cars. But these days, cars are literally computers on wheels. And you don't find sort of the weekend warrior car repair person out there anymore. So I see that. I see auto parts as a declining category for Canadian Tire over the next decade. And I think apparel and sporting goods, that they have new runway now with the Hudson's Bay brand where they can find new crossovers, new incorporations. And I think that's a good thing strategically.
Well, it certainly worked when you think about Loblaw and Joe Fresh, when they incorporated houseware and clothing into their grocery stores.
Absolutely.
That worked out really well for them. Do you see any challenges with this transition?
I think the challenge is really going to be It's going to be having a very disciplined approach to where and when and how they use these assets. Those iconic stripes, I think there's going to be a propensity on the part of marketers within Canadian Tire to want to put that on everything initially, and I think that could be a mistake. They don't want to commodify it. They want to use it very preciously and very strategically where it makes sense and where it can really grow brand equity.
Can I ask you quickly, Doug, about the price? $30 million seems not like a lot of money for what they're getting.
I mean, isn't that the price of a single detached home in Toronto these days?
Something like that.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you can't invest in a risky startup these days for $30 million.
Right.
So to buy a brand with this much heritage, and let's not forget, it's not just the Hudson's Bay brand. It's not just the iconic stripes. They're also getting Gluckstein, Distinctly Home,
right.
Hudson's North, and Zellers, all in the same grab bag for $30 million. It's a bargain.
Lots of bargains at the Bay these days. They're up to 80% off now. Retail expert Doug Stevens, thanks so much. We'll be right back.
My pleasure.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.